We'll wait for Matt to come. He's going to do the slides today, so he'll be here soon. Hey, Lanisha. Thanks for coming. If you have questions, you can feel free to put it in the chat. He's got a lot of slides, so I don't know that we'll have time for just interrupting with questions, but just put them in the chat and I'll kind of try to find times to sneak it in. And we'll cover the payment stuff. And there's Matt.
Hey guys, thanks for coming.
Just on time, not a minute late.
That's right.
So we're broadcasting, we're recording, we're all good over on my end.
Okay.
Are you the host? I'm not even sure. Can you reclaim it? Do I do anything?
Let's see here.
I think you should just be able to share your screen.
Share my whole screen. We'll hit play. All good?
I can see it.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. So 6:01, so we'll start on time. And basically, I guess our topic is unlocking payment success. And really, it's just all about payment processing. So feel free to, throw questions in the chat. We've got some slides. We've got a few things we'll be showing off. So yeah. And I guess the reason we want to do this is basically it comes down to, smooth payment process increases sales. It's a really important thing, part of CheckCherry, something we really prioritize. And we want to make it as easy for you to, collect money from your customers, easy for your customers to pay, and just kind of make the process as smooth and simple as possible. And yeah, that's a big focus on what we do. We try to make it as easy as possible. So
We've always done that. We've always really felt that when money's changing hands, like that's what you're at risk of losing a sale, so it's really important to make it easy, basically, for somebody to pay. And so, yeah.
And so a few key kind of takeaways or, just some high level things to keep in mind. It can be helpful to offer multiple payment methods. Different payment options can accommodate different buying preferences and they boost conversion rates. So, so it can be helpful to give a few different options to your customers. One thing we definitely recommend and we try to do with CheckCherry, but make sure you're kind of keeping in mind is to optimize for mobile. Right before the webinar, I looked up the stats, and over the last 30 days, 42% of all payments that happened on CheckCherry were on mobile. So people are, they're using their phone, they're doing things on the road, and that's, that goes for corporate too. A lot of times, even the corporate clients are making those or finishing, from their device. And you just want to streamline the whole checkout process. That includes, what happens on CheckCherry, and it also includes what happens on your own website as well. So just make that entire checkout process from beginning to end as simple as possible. And in particular, some things that help are, some things like the one-click checkouts with Apple Pay and Google Pay. They help a lot with reducing friction and leading to fewer abandoned cards. Customers don't want to type in a credit card number, particularly on their phone, but really, even on your computer, you don't want to. And payments are really sensitive, so you just want to make sure that you're kind of enhancing security and trust. And so you want to feature trusted payment methods, things that your customers trust and that they're going to feel comfortable making a payment with. And I think I say this during every webinar, but know your market. You really want to focus on the payment methods that your customers want without overwhelming them. If you have 40 different payment methods, that just gets overwhelming. But if you know kind of, where your customers are coming from, you have a variety of things that, accommodate different customer profiles, you'll be in good shape. So, if you do a lot of corporate or things like that, the ACH might be great. Whereas if you're doing a lot of leads from Instagram, some of the Venmos and Zelles and things like that might be more effective for you. And so CheckJerry integrates with, we have a number of different payment processors that we integrate with, different ways you can take payments. And as we kind of go through this, we're going to look at some of the pros and cons and why you might choose to offer something or not. And so we're going to start with what we call CheckJerry payments. CheckJerry payments is the preferred processor in the US. So if you've signed up in the last few years and you're in the US, within your account, you'll see the CheckJerry payments button. And that's going to give you access to credit card. We're just launching ACH bank integration so people can make payments directly from their bank account. That includes an integrated payment dashboard. So you can see all of your payments, your payouts, things like that directly within CheckJerry. And it's powered by Stripe. So, if you're using Stripe, if you've got our legacy Stripe integration or if you're international, it's real similar. The main thing is that the payment dashboard and the ACH bank integration is going to be specific to CheckJerry payments.
Yeah, and just real quick, you can see
Yeah.
payouts within CheckJerry. We can see the
Mhm.
payments that happened. It helps us with support. So if a customer's having a problem making a payment, there's more information. It's just a better customer experience. And Mike's asking in the chat, do we need to do anything with PCI compliance, even though he's a third-party processor like Stripe? And the short of it is no. Stripe handles it, Square handles it. So
We
no.
have to be PCI compliant, and so we meet the PCI compliant. I forget what the level is, but because it's happening on our website, yourdomain.checkcherry.com, it's going to be, we're the ones that have to be compliant, and that's kind of another reason that we do the domains the way that we do as well. That, I guess the one caveat to that, if you're taking credit cards over the phone or doing things outside of CheckJerry, now you're starting to fall into it.
Right. If you're like, yeah, it might not be good to be like, yeah. And I don't even think you can do it with CheckJerry. You can't print receipts with full card numbers or anything. We try to make it easy, basically. So yeah.
So getting started, real simple. If you're just signing up, if you haven't enabled it yet, just go to Manage Payment Settings. And you'll click the big green Enable Payment Processing. That's going to walk you through through the setup process. And basically what you're going to be doing is providing your business information. The payments are going to deposit directly to your business bank account. So as long as you have a business bank account, you should be able to go through it. And generally, it's approved within a few minutes. Sometimes if details don't match up or something, it can take longer. But generally, you're able to get approved within, not too long, a few minutes, maybe a couple of hours at the most. But it's generally a fast process. You're not, if you're kind of more familiar with like the old days where you would wait weeks for a payment processor to go through everything, it's not that. So
I have a question. You say business bank account. If my personal bank account was my business bank account, that would also work, right? Or does it have to be?
So if you're set up as a sole proprietor, and you've got like a DBA, basically what they're going to look at, your business name has to match in some way, correlate to your bank account. So if you're John Smith doing business as, Extreme Photo Booth, as long as you have that DBA set up and your bank knows about that, you're fine. It would only be if, yeah.
And chat anytime you need help, of course.
Yeah, if you have any problems, let us know. We can kind of help you get to the bottom of it. It is worth knowing, the kind of the know your customer laws have increased over the last few years. The government doesn't want you sending money to people that shouldn't be getting it. So, so the verification has gotten a little bit more over the last few years, but as long as the names and everything match, you're usually fine. And so when you go to actually accept a payment, there's two main times that that's going to happen. Either during the initial, when they're going through your online booking or your proposal, you might call that the deposit, the initial payment, things like that. Basically, what's going to happen is they're going to be presented with two choices. They can pay the deposit, the retainer, whatever you call it. They're going to be able to pay that or the full balance at that time. And then one of the things we always try to do with CheckCherry is to collect that signature and that initial payment at the same time. So what we don't want is for you to have to, you've got a signed booking where you're trying to hunt down payment or vice versa on. Ideally, if you're using the online booking, if you're using the proposals, that's all going to happen at once. And so you'll have the signature, it'll be confirmed and you'll have that deposit at that time.
Questions here. Larry's saying, I use Square integration. Do I have to switch for ACH acceptance? And the short answer is yes. And Michael says, if we wanted to incorporate a transaction fee to offset credit card payments, is there a way we'll be able to do that as well? So yes, you can. You can do it, and you can set different rates for things like ACH and credit card. Check with your state laws, that type of thing. But you can absolutely add transaction fees, basically. And then they'll only apply when a customer chooses to use credit card. So when they go to the next step to actually use a card, it'll outline, $100 and $3 to a processing fee. And Mike, real quick, when a customer accepts the terms and conditions in CheckCherry, is there a new update for e-signature and to collect an address? You mean like a physical address? No, there's no new update to share on any of that. Chat with us, for feature requests, that type of stuff. But nope, there's no
the ACH process a little bit later, so you can see as well. So, and you can also save the payment details for later. So, if you are doing credit card, this will apply to ACH as well. There's a checkbox. By default, we do have some options there, but by default, the customer, we're going to opt them in, and then they can uncheck it if they don't want to save their payment details. And you're welcome to charge that card later if you have, for various reasons. And during the proposal or the booking process, we are going to take in your deposit date settings into account. So if you have it set up to take payment, say 14 days before the event, and somebody comes in 3 days before the event, we're not going to have that immediately go past due. We're going to take that full payment amount up front. Generally, we find that's what people want. The only time that it's sometimes a little unexpected when people are first testing. So, and after you get that first payment, that deposit, you're going to have subsequent payments, as the event gets closer or maybe even after the event. And for those subsequent payments, the customer can enter any payment amount. We're going to default it to the balance, but they can select an amount that they want to apply to the balance, and then they can even leave a tip if they want as well. And so, so let's take a look at credit cards in particular. And this is what it's going to look like with CheckCherry payment. There's going to be whatever payment options you have once you get to that payment screen. In this case, we've got the Google Pay showing up, credit card, check, and cash. And then once they click that credit card button, they'll be able to put in their card. We'll collect the expiration, security code, and zip code. That zip code lets us do the AVS verification. And I'm losing my title here, but one of the things, as we talk about, there we go. As we talk about credit cards in particular, they're really convenient for customers. And we're going to talk a lot about other payment methods as well. But I would really, recommend enabling credit cards as an option. For your customers, they let them pay it off over time automatically. They basically have a credit account open already. And so, that can increase the amount that they're willing to pay and things like that. They also have a lot of strong fraud protections, which means your customers are going to feel more comfortable making that payment. Personally, I won't use my bank account on a lot of things because I don't want somebody pulling straight from my bank account. But credit card is great. You know, I have those fraud protections. If there's an issue, I don't need to worry about it. A lot of people get cash back and things like that, so it can be an incentive for them to want to use credit card. And you know, some stats we found beforehand. So credit cards are the most popular method online. You know, for online purchases, they count for around 40 to 50% of global online transactions. I don't know what that number is for the US, but I would guess it's even higher here.
Yeah.
And some of the advantages, accepting major credit cards lead to 30% higher conversion rates than not offering them. So something to keep in mind. And consumers often spend more with credit cards, increasing average order values. So CheckShare's credit card integration, you know, we support all the major ones. If you're in the US, that's going to be Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover. In the US, those are going to be the same rates. I think Stripe charges different for Amex in Canada now, but by and large, the rates are going to all be the same. And one of the advantages with credit card is you have a real-time authorization. You know, the Stripe server is going to connect to the customer's bank, and everything is going to make, you know, basically everybody's, you know, those funds are available when you make that transaction. And the payment amount will be automatically applied to the bookings balance. So you don't need to go in and do anything on your end when you get a payment. And the payout's typically going to happen 2 to 3 business days after a credit card is received. And the fees on that are, with check sharing payments, 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. And basically, you'll find pretty comparable rates through in the US for all the different processors. And CheckSherry does support a lot of the newer standards now. So some of the things like SCA and Secure 3D that are rolling out, where basically it allows cards to be redirected to another site where they can do some additional verification. CheckSherry will handle that seamlessly for you. If you have CheckSherry payments enabled with credit cards, you're automatically going to get Apple Pay and Google Pay as well. And from your perspective, that's going to be treated like a credit card transaction. So you'll see it in the, you know, exactly the same place. It's going to still go to your bank account. It'll look exactly like a credit card transaction. And those will be dynamically shown when available. So that means if I'm on my iPhone and I have Apple Pay set up, I'm going to see the Apple Pay option. Whereas if I'm on an Android device, I'm not going to. And they're highly effective for mobile checkout. So some stats we found, Apple Pay, you know, very common, over 85% of mobile users in the US have used it. And Google Pay, not as popular, but it seems like it's expanding pretty rapidly.
I just want to chime in. Like, I love Apple Pay and Google Pay from like the proposal standpoint. Like, it's a really, really easy way for customers to enter a card number and make a decision and a commitment. And like, I just think they're awesome. So, and they just make it easier. You know, it's just one less thing to do. Go grab out my card, enter it in. It's just basically a really easy way to enter a credit card number.
And yep, exactly. And they're, you know, they continue to grow. So the use of Google Pay increased 19% in 2023. So continue to be more popular. And so, so, you know, that's credit cards. And then ACH, that's, you know, we just launched that. We're still calling it beta, but, you know, we've run a fair number of transactions through it at this point. And so we're continuing to keep an eye on that and, you know, see how that goes. But so far, it's been working really well. And so let's take a quick look at what that looks like.
So, I mean,
Yep.
what is ACH? You know
Yep.
what I mean? If I don't even know, you can explain that.
Nope, go for it.
Okay, so with ACH, it stands for, I think, Automated Clearinghouse, but it's basically in the US how like funds are transferred between bank accounts, is my understanding.
Mhm.
And so it's not a wire, it's different, but basically you can transfer money from your bank account to another bank account. And so I've seen it more popular by like corporate clients. I think we see in support, people will say, hey, I've got a corporate client that wants to pay with a bank account, that type of thing. And the fees generally are lower and it takes longer, I guess, in some ways, right, to get the funds and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, it's not as smooth in many ways as credit card, but allows you to avoid, it's an electronic payment without card, kind of bank to bank account to bank
Mhm.
account, how I would say it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. A few, I can jump into this before we get into the demo, but the transaction cost, it's about half the cost of credit cards. So 1.5% per transaction. It deducts from the customer's bank account. And so that can be helpful with certain corporate, certain nonprofit. Sometimes they don't have even a credit card to use, or there are just certain restrictions they have. And so paying via ACH can be more convenient for them. And that's going to automatically be applied to the bookings balance, and that can be retained on file. So that's helpful. And then, yeah, the cons are, the settlement takes up to 4 business days. So with a credit card, you know immediately whether it's successful or not. ACH is going to take up to 4 business days before you have that settlement. And then you're still, an additional, call it 2 business days for payout. So it's a lot slower of a process. While it's in progress, until you've gotten that final confirmation, it's going to show up as processing in your account. So, we'll treat it as if it's going to work. We'll let them sign the proposal and do everything. But but keep in mind, there is a chance it's gonna come back. And connecting accounts is more complicated than using a credit card, because you're basically logging into your bank. So if we wanted to enable that for our account, as Judd mentioned, you do need to be on Cherry Payments. But if you go to Manage and then Payment Settings, you can see if you're on Cherry Payments here, it's going to show up on the top left here. We can add that as a payment option, and you'll see ACH direct debit. And so we'll add that. And you can give it a different name if you want. I think we default to bank account. We call it, US bank account, call it ACH, whatever you think your customers might know. And then a couple of options that you're going to see as well. If you do want to pass along payment processing fees, you can. So let's go ahead and do that while we're here. And then we can decide, do we want to allow our customers to save this on file for future use? And we can say, yes, allow them, require them, or not. So I'll leave that as allowing them to. And now if I go back to, now that it sends me back to the payment processing page, and after credit card, I see bank account. And you can even change the order on these. They're just drag and drop. So feel free to kind of move them around and reorder them as you want. But let's go take a look at what making a payment looks like. So if I go to one of these payment pages or fake bookings I have here, let me do one with the balance.
Is it negative 72?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
So this booking, kind of a garbage name, but it's got an outstanding balance of 189.22, so that's great. And let's say that I'm a customer and I want to go ahead and leave a tip on here as well. So the customer is going to come to their make a payment page, hit make a payment, and at that point they're going to see all the different payment options that we have set up. So we've got some saved cards on file. We've got Google Pay. We've got credit card. PayPal is set up. And here's the new US bank account option that we just added. Let's go ahead and click this. And so what it's going to ask for at this point is their email address. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. But sample, their first and last name. And they'll be able to basically search for their bank at that point. So we're in kind of the test environment, but I can search for Bank of America, Chase, whatever it is. And then once I do that, then it's going to have me log in. So let's go ahead. Pretend I chose Bank of America. I'm going to choose this test institution instead. agree and continue. And then it's going to basically show me the login page for my bank account. So we're going to choose this successful one because we want it to succeed here.
So it's possible somebody's bank account wouldn't be supported in that login page, right? If you had a small
Exactly.
credit union or something like that,
Yeah.
and you might have to manually enter your bank account and routing number.
And I'll show what that process looks like as well. So, and so there are some additional terms. They can read those or not. They're coming from Stripe though. And then there are basically some requirements with ACH processing. So you need to have specific disclosures for, certain things about, that they can contact you to remove this and things like that. So we do comply with kind of the suggested text on that. So you should be good to go on that. And then once I submit that payment, that's it. From the customer's perspective, it's going to look like just a normal payment. I'm going to have a bank or a payment receipt. I'm going to have bank account as the payment method. In this case, because I did my $192.86 applied to the booking, I did my $50 tip for a total of $242. If I go back to my invoice, it's going to include that on the invoice. So I've got this credit card transaction and this bank account transaction. If I go back to, say I go to my my payment history in my account-wide payment settings under sales and then payments, it's going to show up as processing. And so, like I say, that's going to be up to about 4 business days. Once we get the final word on that, and generally it should go through since, they're logging in with their bank account and everything. Then that's going to change to succeeded. John mentioned another possibility, which is that, somebody has like a credit union or something like that where their bank account or their bank is not supported. We do also support entering bank details manually. And so, if they click this link, what they can do is basically provide their own routing number and account number. We're going to go ahead and use a test account here. And this process is a little more of a pain. What's going to happen is basically Stripe is going to do a couple of micro deposits. So it's going to, deposit a couple of cents in their account. And then once they get that, then they have to come back and finish the payment. We don't think that'll be super popular, but that is an option. And then once they come back to the payment page, then they're going to have a prompt to kind of finish where they left off. They will also get an email from Stripe as well, kind of prompting them to finish that. So, if they don't do it themselves, if they don't come back to the page themselves, then when they get that email from Stripe, they'll be able to do that. And let's see. So I think that's kind of the gist of the ACH. Any other questions before we kind of move on?
Well, Michael, I thought you had a question there about Zelle, but I don't see it anymore. But he said he didn't see Zelle in his account. He was logged in.
Okay, yeah, we can. We'll get into some of the other payment options.
Oh, he figured it out. Okay. Hey, it was a good question.
I didn't want to feel stupid, but I figured it out.
Awesome. And so, yeah, and definitely chat with us. Like I say, we are labeling the ACH as beta at this time. We haven't done nearly the processing volume with that we have with credit cards. So if you do run into any weird edge cases or anything, definitely chat with us. We'll make sure we get them resolved.
Well, I have a comment, which is, I don't think like regular, say if I'm set on using a bank account, I could see for whatever reason I want to use ACH and it's like important to me as a customer. But I think most people, if they, they're going to probably prefer credit card because it's going to be easier. If you are passing along processing fees to them, there might be incentive for them to save some money by logging into their bank account, and doing an ACH transaction. I could also see that, but I guess
another thing on that subject, yeah. So that's a good point. So the customers are generally going to want, I think, credit card. Unless there's some reason for them to choose something else, those payment processing fees will help. One thing to kind of be aware of as well, you can turn on or off. If I want to turn this off during checkout, but still kind of have it in my account, so to speak, I can do that. And then what's going to happen is when somebody goes to make a payment, they're just going to see credit card, PayPal, check, things like that. But one feature that CheckCherry does support um, under the proposal settings or the booking settings, we do have an option to limit the payment methods. So by default, this person is going to see, whatever the defaults are, credit card, PayPal, check, etc. But if you go in and change those settings, you can kind of
I could require somebody to do ACH, basically.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I could turn off credit card and PayPal, and just leave ACH. And
Yeah.
so if you've got, maybe a real high dollar event, maybe that's one that maybe if you don't pass on processing fees, you're not comfortable taking credit cards, you may want to turn that off. And then what's going to happen is, when they go to make that payment, then they're just going to see the
Lanisha is saying she had a bad experience with ACH. I'd be curious to hear what happened. Feel free to unmute yourself or just chat in there with what happened. But it's been an open feature request at CheckCherry. I don't know, pretty much since day one. And I think it's, the lower processing fees, people are interested in that. And it's here now. It's just more of a little bit more work, I think, for customers. But we do see in support, what people say is that I think more common is corporate clients want to pay with bank account. I have seen that quite a bit.
yeah. And like I say, it may be something you want to, go ahead and enable as an option on those rare cases you need it, but maybe you leave that turned off for most of your customers so that, so you don't need to deal with the hassle of it. And so with that said, processing fees, and how do I play here? Here we go. So, I used to be pretty dead set against processing fees. I think I'm, probably softening my stance as time goes on, just because they're just getting a lot more common. I still don't love them. As a customer, I get a little bit annoyed when I have a fee, another fee to pay. So, but it is a lot more common. Even I think the DMV charges them now. Like it's just something you see a lot more. My doctor, they did the other day, so you just see a lot more of the payment processing fees. But with CheckCherry, basically the way we handle it is if you do have processing fees set up, we try to be real smart about it. And so what that means, events are a little bit different than something like, a checkout at a grocery store or something, in that a lot of times you're only taking part of the payment up front. And so what CheckCherry does with that is we're only going to apply the processing fees to the portion that they're paying at that time. And so if they're doing a partial payment, a deposit, things like that, the payment fees will automatically reflect that. And so we won't show those until they're on the page, and then we're going to break it out separately. So the customer can see just what the fee is for each payment method. And that can be a big incentive for them to maybe choose something else. If they're really cost sensitive, maybe it's worth the hassle of going through the bank account verification or, using something like Zelle. And then on the flip side, if, you're less price sensitive, maybe you're fine paying those processing fees.
I've got some chats here. Lanisha saying she basically had someone who disputed the charge, client who disputed the charge, the bank took more from my account than they were supposed to. It was back and forth chaos trying to prove the actual amount, the communication between the client. And it's interesting, right? Because like you're talking debits and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that's no fun. Mike says our CPA was telling me that if we charge processing fees, that is counted as revenue and taxes have to be collected on the fees. So I don't have any comment on that. I'm not quite sure how all that works. And then Marty says, I don't see Zelle, Venmo, nor Cash App as options in my account. And so Marty, the Zelle doesn't give us an API to integrate with. And so you can create custom payment methods and then just list your Zelle information. And
We'll come
so,
back to that a little bit more later. So
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so with
Good. Perfect.
yeah. So on those processing fees, if you do want to pass along payment processing fees, manage payment settings, and again, those are going to be on each payment method. So I can come into credit card, I can say 2.9 plus 30 cents if I want to make sure that
And a comment here. I think, isn't there maximum amounts you can do on credit card processing fees
yep.
too?
And
Yeah.
so there are maximum amounts. I don't know that
Might
there's a
be per
universal
state.
maximum. It's going to be location dependent. So I would say 4%, maybe 5%, but 4% is probably a good rule of thumb. I wouldn't go over 4% unless you're
Yeah.
really sure that that's okay. Another caveat with processing fees is um, oh shoot, what was I going to say? So you've got your, so some states are passing laws about fee disclosure and basically saying that, the California being one of them, that basically the price that you disclose to the customer needs to include all fees up front, that you're not allowed to tack on fees after the fact. So again, you're going to want to make sure that whether it's your website, wherever you're showing that price the first time, if you are going to be passing along processing fees, that may be something to consider. And consider it may just kind of leave a bad taste in the mouth of your customer. When nobody's happy about about paying processing fees. And so still the default in Check Cherry, and what I would recommend is to leave them turned off. And
I feel like if like, if 3% is making you lose sales, you know what I mean? Like you're better off bumping your prices 5% and just making it easy for people to pay. That's kind of been my position, but
Mhm.
and there's a lot of benefits to cards.
Right.
You don't have to go collect. It's like accounts receivable. They can finance. They have some protections in there that with disputes and chargebacks, which cover earlier. But I just think like, and it's just credit cards in the U.S. at least are like just so prevalent. Um,
Exactly. And there was a comment about the sales tax treatment. So one thing to keep in mind with Chet Cherry, so basically part of an event may be taxable. We may have an event that's 37% of it is taxable because of the add-ons that were chosen and the packages and things like that. Um, you know, um, Once they go to make a payment, they may only be paying, the deposit portion of that. And so we're not going to charge sales tax on those processing fees. Once you get to, we'll have it broken out, but I don't believe, yeah, those are not going to be, we're not going to collect sales tax on those, which doesn't mean you can't, do it yourself and keep track of it. But it is something to consider if your accountant is telling you that processing fees are taxable. It may just be more trouble than it's worth. Because I don't, it almost
would that
becomes
even
like
work?
a
Right.
recursive thing. Like then we're charging sales tax, and then there's more processing fees, and then so there's not really room
Right.
for us to do that. So and the so just kind of a point to keep in mind on that. And then payouts. So you get the money, that's great. It goes into your, basically kind of sits in check cherry payments for a little while. And that's going to be the same for regardless of whichever payment processor you're using. And how that works, that's going to go into basically take about 2 to 3 business days, and then it's going to be deposited directly to your bank account after that. Worth mentioning, the first payout may take longer. We tend to see around 7 business days on that first one. And then we do support instant payout available for additional cost. And so you can access all of your payment stuff in Check Cherry by going to Sales Payments and click the Payouts button. We'll have a history of all the payments, where they're at, what we know about them, and things like that. So, lots of good info there. If you're using a regular Stripe account or Square or something like that, then you're going to have to go to those places. And you can also, if you're eligible for the instant payout, you'll see a Payout Funds button there as well.
Just real quick,
So,
Lanisha is saying processing fees are supposed to be a tax credit for your business, but clarify with your accountant, the fees are included in revenue, merchandise, etc. The processing fees are included as revenue for merchandise like Square or Stripe. Actually, I just got a big tax notification about that here in Florida. So, yeah, I mean, I don't, it's it seems like a game of cat and mouse always, right? Like, processing fees become more, popular, and then it's like it's just yeah. So, but if you do absorb costs in accepting payments, yeah, that will reduce your profit, and you should have less tax liability.
And so Stripe Connect, real similar to the check cherry payments. And so our international accounts and older US accounts might have that. It's going to be real similar to check cherry payments. It's going to have credit card, Apple Pay, Google Pay. It's not going to have the dashboard integration. So if you want to see what's happening in your account, you're going to need to go into stripe.com, and it's going to automatically apply to the customer balance, just like check cherry payments. PayPal, Chitcher integrates with PayPal. That's going to allow acceptance, so make this bigger here, of PayPal payments. It can be used in conjunction with your card processor. You can have them both, you can have neither, it's up to you. And it's going to have comparable rates to credit cards as well. So that's not going to include Apple Pay or Google Pay. And then you're going to have to, any refunds, things like that, you're going to have to handle outside of Chitcher payments. One thing we do kind of see as, slightly higher rejection rate, slightly more likely that there are errors or issues with PayPal rejecting people, whether it's fraud or whatever the reason. So something to keep in mind. And they do have a pay later feature built in, which is kind of nice. And that as well is going to automatically apply to the customer balance. And so one stat about PayPal. So PayPal accounts for about 25 to 30% of online payments globally. I've never been a big PayPal fan, but people still do use it. So, and then we do integrate with Square as well currently. So that is going to have credit card, Apple Pay, Google Pay, fairly comparable rates. It's not going to have all the features, but it is an option as well too.
And just a comment on Square is Larry was saying basically like, hey, do I have to switch over from Square to check trade payments to ACH? The answer is yes. And basically saying, hey, I use other services like payroll within Square. So it makes it less attractive to switch just for the ACH. And I think that makes sense. I mean, I think everybody's going to have a different business perspective. There's also other payroll services out there. So take a look at that as well. We've been using Gusto and we're fans of that. But certainly get it. Yeah.
And so manual payment methods. So that's going to be things like your Venmo, your Zelle, your Cash App, stuff like that. And those are going to be, people sometimes like those primarily because they have lower processing fees.
No processing fees at sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see how long that party lasts.
Yeah. But as Jed kind of mentioned, they have to be manually applied to the bookings balance. So we don't know if you get a payment via Zelle, we don't know that. You're going to have to, take that payment. You're going to have to figure out whose that is and apply that manually so that the balance is correct. And things like payout times, processing times, et cetera, can vary. And they may have limits on transaction amounts as well. So something to keep in mind, like I was looking at, apparently Zelle for personal has like a $500 a week limit. So, if somebody's doing, a lot of event types, that's not going to work. So
I feel like Venmo was asking whether this was for personal or business use. And if I selected business use when paying somebody, they were going to charge a transaction fee.
Yeah. And so a lot of the fees or the advantages kind of go away. As you mentioned, so Venmo charges 1.9% on business transactions. So, if you can kind of, pretend it's not business, maybe it's fine, but you might get hit with processing fees there as well. And so Venmo, popular among, kind of the younger crowd, I think. Some people say that kind of the social sharing features, things where it shows up in their timeline and things like that can kind of help with encourage sales. Zelle is another one that we see a lot more the last few years. That one has limited e-commerce use. It tends to be used more for person-to-person transfers. But it does have a real large US user base, apparently 500 million users in the US. which is more than the population of the US, so I'm not sure how they so a lot of accounts one way or another.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so again, it's kind of more for person to person, but it can be useful, and for certain demographics, it can be helpful. And that one, to my knowledge, does not have payment processing fees. I think some of the, again, as a customer, I don't love using Zelle because I'm always kind of scared that I'm screwing something up. I'm paying the wrong
I'm gonna say,
person. Yeah, I'm
I've
gonna lose
paid the
that
wrong
money.
person before, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So,
It was like Bonnie with an IE versus a Y. Like it was, and they had the same last
yeah.
name. It was for my kid's soccer, and it wasn't a lot of money, but yeah.
And so with those manual payment methods, basically how you do those is if you go to manage and then payment settings, we're going to add a payment method. And so we're going to see this manual payment option. And so we'll go ahead and click add there. And all you're going to do is basically put whatever instructions you think are going to make your customer kind of understand what's going on there. So we don't really even provide a recommendation on that, but send me, send to, at my address at, whatever service. You can kind of change the colors and buttons and all that as well.
I mean, to be frank, my recommendation would be don't use these, be professional, use cards and ACH, like, yeah. And if somebody wants to send PayPal or Venmo and they ask for it, well, absolutely. Here's how you do it. Send them, however, text, email, whatever, the information. But we had people that really wanted these type of features in Check Cherry though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a popular thing that people do have enabled. So, and then you do have an option whether you want to show that as on your invoices as well. So, up to you. And so, anyway, so I think anything else on kind of Zelle, Venmo?
No,
Anything?
Marty, does that make sense to you? I mean, maybe there's some questions there, but I think just to clarify, there's not a true integration with Zelle. They don't provide an opportunity for us to do that. The customer will basically get a message to say, hey, here's where you Zelle the money. They'll confirm the booking, and then you're in a position where you have a signed contract without technically having the money. And so then they Zelle the money, you manually log the payment on the invoice, and then you're good to go. Okay, cool. Thanks, Marty.
And so, in an ideal world, everything would always work fine, and your customers would be nice, and but there are a number of things that can go wrong, of course. Probably the most common is just simple declines. So somebody goes to make a payment and it doesn't go through for whatever reason. A lot of times they'll be frustratingly vague. Oh, my payment's not working, and there are a number of reasons for declines. Incorrect information. There's a certain amount of real-time validation that happens as they're typing that helps a lot with that. So if they get the expiration date in the past or something like that, that's going to show up in real time. But other things, if the expiration date is in the future but it's wrong, they're not going to know until they hit submit. And so the payment processors tend to be real vague for privacy reasons as to why it's declined. They'll pretty much just say, hey, your payment was declined. Another common reason, insufficient funds, over credit limit, maybe somebody's using a card and didn't realize something. Sometimes they have internal restrictions set up. So maybe the corporation has daily limit, or they have a daily limit, or they have international, transactions blocked, and they're, paying from Canada or something like that. So fraud detection systems can pick up stuff, sometimes incorrectly. If they don't usually buy photo booths, it's a corporate account or something like that, and then all of a sudden one day they buy a photo booth, it can be, maybe something that the fraud detection systems pick up on and block. And sometimes it's a matter of, some kind of bank information out of date, maybe an address changed, or they didn't verify something they were supposed to do, or things like that. And so with declines, what you want to do, again, the reasons are often pretty vague. So there's not a lot that you have to work with, but, try to get as specific of information as you can from the customer. Can you send me a screenshot? Can you, copy and paste the error message, things like that. just to get a little bit better idea of where they're getting hung up. And again, a lot of times they're just going to need to
Use a different card.
either use a different card or
And I suppose like worst case scenario, I mean, obviously chat with us if you have questions.
or
It's
call their bank
unlikely.
to resolve. Yeah.
Yeah, I was to say is to a lot of times, hey, give your bank a call, or if you're still running an issue, it's like, hey, like let's do a three-way call with the bank and find out what's going on. And it'll typically that probably won't happen. They'll probably use another card or something of that nature, but you could get, the information right from the bank as to why it's being declined. Check
If it's
Cherry
gonna
and
decline, I mean, it's something on the customer side. It's not really something that you or CheckCherry or Stripe or anybody else can deal with.
we're just passing the message along to the
overwhelmingly,
bank.
yeah, it's on the customer side. So refunds. So of course, sometimes you get a deposit and then something changes, you need to issue a refund. So for any credit card payments, you can do that. And same with ACH. Those can be issued directly through CheckCherry. They cannot be more than the original payment amount. So, if you took in $1,000, $1,000 is the most you can refund. If you took in a payment method via Zelle, you can't refund that via credit card because, that's not how it was taken in. So, so it has to be back the same, back to that same payment method. And even if that refund is still going to go through, even if their card number changed, even if the expiration is no longer valid, even if their bank, they no longer deal with that bank, it's still going to go to that card. And so one way or another, they will be able to get that money. So if you have somebody reaching out and, hey, can you, that card doesn't work for me, can you send me a check instead? Frankly, it's probably fraud, so don't do that. But it will get back to them eventually. And generally with most payment processors, the original fees are not returned. So if they charge 2.9% during payment, you're probably not getting those fees back. To my knowledge, nobody charges an additional fee for refunds though. So
Right.
And so issuing a refund in CheckCherry, it's real easy. If you go to sales payments, or you can go to the booking and look at the payment history. You can start it from this page if you want. I can find, if I want to refund this $100, I can do that right here. I can do start a refund and I can select the amount to refund. If there was a tip amount, it'll ask me how much of the tip amount, how much of the full amount. And again, the most I can do is however much is outstanding on that balance.
I don't have stats, but my impression is that not a lot of refunds going out of CheckCherry, thankfully. It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It says the refund process is terrific. Michael says the refund process is terrific. Clients love that they get it immediately. Yeah. They get an email and I don't, in terms of deposit, I mean, I think it happens. My guess is it might take 2 business days. I don't know though, right? It does, we say immediate. I mean, obviously it doesn't show up in their account. Do you know?
It depends.
Well,
It's
I
actually,
mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry, easier to talk.
Yep,
A lot of times when you call a business for a refund, they're like, oh, it's going to take, 2 to 3 weeks to process.
right.
Like none of that bullshit. I'll tell them, hey, I just gave you a refund. You probably just got an email. Should be in your account in a couple of days.
Right. And that's like, that's a good way to do business. Like, I'm not trying to hold your money and play games. Like, we're just,
That's great.
I love that.
And that kind of leads into the next thing, which is disputes and chargebacks. So that's what you don't want to happen. So say your customer contacts you, they're like, hey, I want a refund. And you're like, no, too bad. They can contact their bank and basically ask for a refund. And when that happens, the money is immediately pulled from your account and additional fees are assessed.
I think it's like $15 extra, regardless of the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm. And then, and that does have a negative impact to your dispute rate. So if you have an unusually high number of disputes, that's going to put your ability to process credit cards at risk. And that's actually something that's going to follow you across payment processors as well. So, it's not going to be just a matter of like, oh, I'll just set up a Square account. That's kind of a Visa, MasterCard thing. they'll see that you have too high of a dispute rate and you're not going to be able to get on anywhere. So you want to keep those disputes low. And something I learned today, I knew that you could just do disputes quite a while after. I'd always heard 120 days. It's actually 100 days after the event, not the payment. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yeah, that's a kind of a clarification they have there. So
we don't see a lot of disputes overall on Check Cherry. Thankfully, I think the fact that people show up at events and they, but they do happen. Absolutely. And so, but I also think that, yeah, telling somebody, no, I'm not going to refund you if they're unhappy or something like that could result in a chargeback. Absolutely.
And there are three ways you can get hit with disputes. Number one is fraud. That can be somebody, using their own card and then reporting it as, that it didn't happen. It doesn't happen a lot since it is kind of a personal industry. Somebody's showing up to your event, like you kind of, probably know,
I was at your house.
It can also be fraud where somebody is, steals credit cards and they just want to, maybe run a transaction through you and see if they can get you to send a check or something weird like that. So fraud is a big one. So if you do see something suspicious coming in, don't send a proposal to them. Don't let it go through and think, hey, I've got some free money. It's probably not going to work out for you in the long run. The number two reason is mistakes or misunderstandings. So, you see something on your credit card statement and you don't know what it is. You're like, I don't think that's a real charge. And, as a result, you want to make sure that your descriptor, your payment descriptor, matches your business name. If you've got like an LLC that you do business under that's completely different than what your business name is, than what people are seeing, that's going to be confusing for people. So, and I see, big companies do that too. You'll see even like cattle or something on your account, and it's like, what is that? And the third reason is a dissatisfied customer. And so with those, you want to get that before they're at the stage where they're issuing disputes. And so if you do get a dispute, you're going to see an email in your inbox. It's going to have instructions. Basically, the first thing you want to do is contact the customer. Figure out why, what's going on here? Why are you reporting this as an issue? Figure out why that is.
And just to the best outcome is to say, oh, I didn't realize, or it's a mistake. Let me contact the bank and let them know that it was a mistake, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? They can contact the bank and pull the charge back. I don't know the terminology there.
Yeah, they can.
But that would be your best outcome.
Exactly.
Oh, it's a misunderstanding. Okay, go ahead and just call the bank and tell them, and I'll keep an eye on it. Yeah.
And then you're gonna, if you do decide to dispute it, there is a process where you can dispute it. You can provide, the information that, that is requested and try to fight it. Frankly, it's a pain in the butt. There's a lot of information they want. They want to see your agreement, proof that you provided the services, things like that. And what's kind of annoying too is you only get one shot. Everything gets submitted and it gets sent over to the customer's bank to make the decision. And it is the customer's bank that makes the decision. It's
right. As I say, like two things. One, it's the customer's bank. It's their, it's their bank. So they tend to side with the customer, which is understandable at some level. And then also it's just like, it is painful to submit all the information. And you probably
everything goes well and you prove them wrong and you get your money back, it still will take about 2 to 3 months. It can take 2 to 3 months to resolve. So, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Some people will accept the dispute and instead, bill the customer, for the amount plus a processing charge. So if you need that money, quicker, that is an option as well. And so,
yeah.
Then again, try to resolve it before it gets to that point. You're not going to get justice through the dispute system or anything like that. At the end of the day,
Right.
kind of
It's an issue between you and the customer.
All that stuff is core. So yeah.
And that's another thing I see online. People are like, "Oh, Square, they there was a chargeback and and I lost it, and so now they don't like Square." But it's like Square is just in the middle of passing along the message that the bank said, and really, it's an issue. I mean, Square is not a court. You know what I mean? Like they're just passing along information. They're making decisions based on what they have. They're probably favoring customers, especially if they don't issue a lot of chargebacks. They're going to believe them. And obviously, there's small claims court for stuff that probably most of our customers would fall under with the amounts that we see charged. Obviously, at that point, you got to decide, is it even worth it? Because then you're going to waste time and energy and all that stuff. So, yeah.
And so a few tax implications, we'll just go through this real quick, but as we kind of discussed it a little bit. Sorry, all payments are taxable regardless of the payment method. So just because somebody uses, credit card, anything else, it's still, you have to pay taxes on it. But if you hit certain thresholds, then you'll receive a 1099-K from the processor. You'll get that from Stripe. If you're using check payments, you'll get that from Stripe. You'll get it from Venmo if you cross the threshold there. Whoever you use, if you cross the threshold, you'll get that 1099-K. And that number is, to my understanding, going down this year. So that's going to be a $5,000 limit for payments received in 2024.
And isn't there like different federal and state limits too?
Yeah, different
tax reporting.
States will have different thresholds as well to make it more complicated. So yeah. Generally speaking, obviously talk to your accountant. We don't know, but in most states, processing fees would be deductible. And so what I mean by that, if you're spending money on processing fees, that would be something you can deduct.
It's a business expense, right? I mean, at the end of the day.
Yep. You're bringing in $1,000, you're receiving, $950, you've got, that can be deducted. And you can access those reports under in CheckCherry under sales reports. Just chat with us if you need help. And yeah, some of the tax implications, if you're charging your customers processing fees, it may get complicated. So that may be a reason not to. So I didn't want to end on tax stuff. That's a horrible way to end. So
I was gonna say it's 701 tax. Get me out of here.
Right. So a few things moving forward. What's kind of coming down the pipeline. We are going to be doing some of the buy now, pay later stuff. We have support for that built in. We're looking to do some testing on that. So if you're interested, reach out to us. Maybe Klarna or Afterpay will be coming soon.
Do those have processing fees, and are they less than credit card?
No, they are more than credit card.
Do I pay them as a merchant, or does
you would pay them as a merchant unless you pass them on?
Okay.
Yeah. Payment plans is something, it's highly requested. It's I think we're getting closer.
Kind of our own payment plan feature, which would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Tap to pay, that's something we want to add to the app. So
in other words, I'm at an event, customer brings the credit card over, I open the CheckCherry iPhone app, and I just tap and accept the payment.
Exactly.
That would be cool.
So those are probably, in the payment world, some of the things we're looking forward to. Maybe longer term, maybe like kind of a security deposit feature. I think that one's a ways off. I think the other three are particularly the buy now, pay later stuff. We're pretty much ready with that. We just need to, do some.
I had some thoughts on that security deposit feature because authorizations only last for so long, and then there's the processing fees and refunding. I had some thoughts I'll share with you after the call.
Awesome. So I think that's all we got for the slideshow. I know we kind of went a little bit long, so it's at 7:03, but
pretty good though. Not
anybody
bad.
wants to stick around for any
questions, comments, feel free. Yeah. Yes, love the buy. Yeah, she Lanisha's saying she wants the buy now, pay later features. Awesome. So that's awesome. Yep, makes sense. ACH is live. Go to your account. You have to be on Check Cherry Payments, Michael. So double check that you see a Check Cherry Payments logo. If you're not, chat with us on support. We'll show you how to disconnect and get connected back. It's different than the legacy Stripe integration. It's a different account. And it's a tighter integration. You can ask questions right now. But it's easy. It's not, it's easy. Everything else seems the same, but yeah. Oh no, Lenisha said she broke her hand bone.
No.
Well, heal fast, and
Yeah.
maybe it's an excuse not to exercise. No, I'm joking. Already taking credit cards is something that has to be changed. Yeah, Michael, I'll take a look at your account and send you a note. That works. Yeah. So, but thanks for coming, everybody, and we're excited about more payment stuff. It's important, and we'll more stuff coming around this area, and we're looking forward to helping you guys be successful. I think is really the short of it. So, thank you for coming, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks. Bye.